Alright, welcome back. Hopefully you have came from the original video where we created this animation. If not, you probably want to go check that out because this video is not going to be much use unless you've seen the first part. Unless you want to learn about the 2D vector, in which case you might as well just watch it. But alright, let's get started. Alright, before I start doing anything with the actual animation, I just want to sort of explain a few things. With 2D vectors and get vectors, you will need these for the actual animation. You're going to need two get vectors and one sort of 2D vector. What we've got here is we've got the size of the vector, we've got the width and the height. We will be using 2 width, and the height will be however many points you have along the chain. We've got 6, so we're going to have 6 high. And then we're going to link these up. It's going to alter. You see, you've only got select index on here. When we link it to this, we're going to get another option, which is select row. And then we're going to also take a variable data source. Now, okay, so basically this variable data source is going to control the row number for these two get vectors. So basically, this is the actual grid here, the vector. This is going to be our start. This column is going to be the start angle. This column, the second column, is going to be the end angle. The index number in this box here, this variable data source, the index on here is referring to the row. The index number is referring to the column, and this is selecting the row. So basically, if we use this same increase value here and we link it to this, as our animation goes through, this number is going to increase. It's going to switch between the rows. So in here, we're going to store the angle data for each row. The first row will be point 0 to point 1. This is going to be point 1 to point 2, point 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, and so on. So, okay, so let's just say we want to start at 0. You always really want to start at 0 unless you want sort of a sudden change in angle when the animation starts. So we're going to go to 90. The start value is always the same as the end value of the previous change. So that, unless you want sort of a sharp change in angle, which you probably don't. So this is going to be 90. We're going to spin that around to, wow, I shouldn't have done that, to something a bit more sensible, like 250. And then 250 is going to go back to 0. Just keep it simple just so I can sort of show you what I mean. Now this one, the index is set to 0, which means it's pulling the digit from this column, which is why this is also 0, because the index is 0. If I switch the index to 1, it should say 90. That's because it's now pulling numbers from this column. So this is the start angle, this is the end angle. When it changes, this will change. Like that. Okay, now let's just make that a bit bigger so you can actually see the change in angle. And now all you need to do is hook that up to a linear data source, which is also disabled, and it also resets when it's disabled. And the duration again goes to this, and the start value is to the first get vector, the end value to the second one. So it is changing. Let's just turn that on so we can see what it's doing. It's not actually connected to an OPE yet, so it's not actually going to affect the object, but it will move between the numbers. Obviously it's not connected to these yet, so it's not going to reset. However, if we do link it to these two here, the two state events, it will then react properly, it will start, and then it will carry on, and then it will go back down to 0, which is what we expect it to do. Okay. So, obviously you're going to need another OPE just to finish it off. This one is going to be set to not modify position, it is going to be local. You will need to create a new set of these three. You don't need a new vector. Actually, I'll do an example of this now. So, if I create 3 of those, remember to disable them all, of course. Hook them all up to this, as well as the new OPE. That one's already hooked up. Hook those up there. Okay, now you'll notice that we've now got 6 boxes, which means we are going to need 6 width, which makes the grid 6 wide. The first 2 columns will be our yaw. The next 2 columns will be the pitch, and the final 2 will be the bank. So I'm not actually gonna sort of change them, because changing the numbers in this grid is kind of annoying and tedious, but you will be able to see the change in the yaw. The others won't change any because they are set to 0. You will also need to change the index number, obviously, because this is still reading from the first column. So that will need to be 2, this will need to be 3, this one will need to be 4, and finally this one will be 5. And then you can link this up to the box, and you can run the power directly from this OPE just by chaining it up, and that's it, pretty much. It is that simple. So it will turn 90 degrees, it will then turn a bit more, and then it will go back to 0. And then obviously, you can change the numbers in here to suit the angles that you want. Completely customizable. The only problem is, once you reach, you will notice that the maximum number of rows you can have is 32, which means once you go above 32 sort of node changes, you will need to create another vector, and you will also need to switch to that vector, which is a bit more complicated, but I'm probably not going to explain it in this video because, well, it's a lot more work basically, and I didn't really plan on doing it, so I don't have it sort of stored in my brain at the moment. I could probably do it, but yeah, not on video like first time. But yeah, I did do it when I built the Easter egg on Prospector. I would show you that, but I lost my save, so I actually don't have anything saved at the moment, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. But yeah, that's it. That's the angles. I mean, you can do global angles as well. Maybe I'm actually going to show that now, just so people can use that if they want. There is a few problems with it, of course, but we can discuss those. For the global angles, you're going to use the same OPE, just one single OPE, same as the movement, or the. So you wanna re-enable the modify rotation. You want it global. You're gonna want 2 more of these and another one of those. Exactly the same. You can just copy them over. You're gonna want to change these 2 to angle. It's already linked up to the time, so that's good. But if you did just create them from sort of the editor menu, then you will need to link the time duration back to this box here, and then you can grab all of the information from this one data source, and that basically it's going to take into account the rotation of the actual nodes. So if I move that like that, it's going to move from there. I'm not sure why that didn't work. Oh yes, hang on. That's because this needs to be connected to this. So yeah, make sure you select the two state events and connect them to the new data source as well. So it's going to rotate to the same angle of that, and then it's going to rotate back to that, and then obviously the only problem with it is once it goes above 360, so if I spin that around, and then if I spin that one a bit more, it sort of messes up, and I honestly don't know how to fix it, so I'm not even going to sort of try to explain how, because I don't know. So yeah, that's the downside to using global rotation, which is why I prefer to just create nice little grids and just manually put the rotations in. But it's up to you. Hopefully this has helped.